If you're feeling good about yourself, go online.
Right.
So I don't do that. And to feel grounded in something that's real. Grounded in something that's real.
I love that you've brought this life to the world in such a beautiful way.
And I just hope we're back home in time for it.
Meghan's interview with Time is all about facades, giving people the false impression that Meghan's a successful entrepreneur. Never mind that her cooking show is at 3.2 on IMDb. Never mind that the so-called documentary Harry and Meghan was criticized and her book got negative reviews, to put it mildly. Never mind that her animated series was cancelled and that her podcast Archetypes was discontinued after the first season. Thus, this interview exposes the insincerity of media companies, celebrity culture, and the entertainment industry as a whole. I mean, listen to this.
Your third platform, which I love, is your podcast, Confessions of a Female Founder. What are your confessions?
But I think confession for you today that I could very comfortably say is I'm the happiest that I've ever been. And that part, to have a partner and a husband who is just so supportive, and to have healthy kids that are so joyful in the freeness of their life and the safety of their life that we create for them, of all the things that have happened in my life, I never would have imagined getting here at this point. I would feel just so happy and grateful, and I really do.
Well, that's amazing.
Yes, what's not amazing about Meghan's completely reliable response? That's some confession, I must say, and people who are actually happy always feel the need to tell you they are. This doesn't sound like damage control or a disingenuous response to her many critics at all.
And I really do.
This type of overly convincing language is typical of people who aren't as happy as they brand themselves as. And she mentions this as a confession, even though it's not. That's how important image protection is to Meghan. And the sentences make no logical sense.
I never would have imagined getting here at this point. I would feel just so happy and grateful.
Why wouldn't she have imagined feeling happy and grateful? This sounds more like Meghan wanting to overemphasize how happy she supposedly is, no matter if it makes sense or not. A ready-made conclusion that she's had time to rehearse ever since leaving the UK. But Jessica loves it all and thinks everything Meghan says and does is amazing, which is like praising Kirk Cameron for saving Christmas.
And that really does come out in your show. You obviously have to just let some things go. I love that you're high-low. This all looks wonderful, but you can do some of it. It's not perfection. It's just...
No.
Jessica, the CEO of Time, yes, I didn't believe it either, has a hard time, pun intended, finding something to say about Meghan's show.
And that really does come out in your show.
What comes out in the show? Happiness and gratefulness. How's that related to letting some things go? And which things? What are we even talking about?
You obviously have to just let some things go.
Jessica's vagueness says a lot about the show, and not in a good way. But at least she knows which cliches to resort to. In this case, the platitude about not being perfect.
It's not perfection. It's just...
No.
What specifically does she love about that? With that line of reasoning, I guess she loves Saving Christmas as well, because that movie certainly wasn't perfection. Not being perfect has become every disingenuous advertiser's and so-called celebrities' go-to cliché, in order to make money by promoting themselves as down-to-earth and relatable. This cliché is implied in Meghan's cooking show and on her podcast, like this.
It's just surrounded by love. Okay, that would crave being able to go hi and my friend, are you here? And you're in the kitchen playing and making mistakes and having fun together. And I think that's what I'm hoping translates.
No, just be honest in the journey of it 100%. And say, yeah, today I'm going to show up for you, but I'm showing up for you in my sweatshirt today because I've been up all night with my babies. You feel broken when things don't go as planned, when simply showing up feels like a huge feat.
It's easy being an interviewer when all you do is regurgitate self-promotional elements from your guest script. The good thing about this interview, and there aren't many good things, is that Jessica and Meghan mention CEOs, leaders and media companies by name, so that we can know the people and companies we should never take seriously again, including Netflix. Next, it's Business Insider.
I love how a journalist from Business Insider lived your life for a week, or tried to live the show for a week.
Okay, that I didn't hear about. What was their week like?
Oh, my team's like, don't talk about it.
What was their week
Other
like?
media company, but
So
I love that, and you can. Not on the script. You can live this life. You've brought this life to the world in such a beautiful way. And backstage we were just talking about, we kind of need hope. I like to say fun, but hope. And you're really focused on that. So
I think
we appreciate it.
Thank you. I mean, I think hope.
In case you're wondering, no, this isn't the only time we're lucky enough to witness Jessica's unapologetic flattery.
I want to talk about you as a founder, as a CEO, as an innovator, as a creator, as an investor. We have the CEO of Netflix here. I did binge your show with Love, Meghan. There's nothing you can't do, which is amazing. But you care for so many people. Everything that you do comes with caring for the people that are on your show and around you. How do you care for yourself?
Oh, thank you for asking that. Well, look, I think
you've brought this life to the world in such a beautiful way. And
Brought what life to the world, and how's it beautiful? I'm sure Jessica thinks it's beautiful, in the same way I'm sure that Will and Jada have had a beautiful journey.
And the beautiful part about it is like this whole journey, as difficult as it's been, has just brought Will and I closer in such an authentic way.
If you were to describe your
most
relationship,
beautiful place.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, it's been beautiful. It's been beautiful.
What does that beauty look like for you day in and day out? So are y'all living together?
It's just this beautiful connection.
Jessica's hesitation and restarts give us the real answer, that there's nothing beautiful about it.
you can live this life. You've brought this life to the world. Backstage we were just talking about, we kind of need hope. I like to say fun.
No, that's what Meghan likes to say, but I guess we're expected to believe that Jessica just happened to use the very same word that's become Meghan's go-to word when describing her many beautiful shows.
And let's all have fun with it and not take it too seriously, and having fun together.
And creatively, we worked as partners to really find a way for it to land and for me to be able to share it and just have fun.
I like to say fun, and you're really focused on that. So
focus on what exactly? Happiness, gratefulness, fun, bringing a beautiful life to the world, whatever that means, nothing of course. Or now, hope, or maybe not being perfect. When there's nothing meaningful to say and you know it, this extreme level of vagueness is the result.
And you're really focused on that. So
Jessica's body language, looking away, is similar to a student who finds reading Shakespeare boring, but has been asked by his teacher to explain what makes Shakespeare's works revolutionary.
Well, I think
we appreciate it.
Thank you.
No one knows what Jessica and we are supposed to appreciate, but who cares about substance when there's so much self-promotion to do, right?
Well, I think
we appreciate it.
Thank you. I mean, I think hope maybe is one word for it. Also just people wanting to reconnect with each other, really wanting to have a sense of community and to feel grounded in something that's real and that's not that complicated.
One of the key reasons why Meghan's word choice seems contrived is because it's geared towards self-promotion. Thus, she doesn't leave it up to the audience to infer that what she does is real or authentic, another one of her go-to terms.
It's about being authentic. So I just spoke from the heart, and that's probably why it doesn't look polished, and that's why it doesn't feel perfect, but that's also why it's authentic.
The more deliberate and thus less real and authentic a person is, the more they have to say they are. It becomes part of their self-promotion as they keep failing to realize how superficial and vague their statements end up sounding as a result. For instance, what does it mean to be grounded in something that's real? Could Meghan be referring to the authentic and organic smiling in her cooking show?
Also just people wanting to reconnect with each other, really wanting to have a sense of community.
Yes, because we needed Meghan's cooking show in order for that to happen, because people can't reconnect anywhere else, and it's not like the guests were literally invited to come on for publicity. No, they really wanted to have a sense of community, even though we don't know what community Meghan's talking about. Everything in this interview is just so specific and profound.
And that's not that complicated.
Meghan says that as if it's a good thing, when one of the many problems with her projects, and so-called Netflix originals by the way, is the lack of complexity and obvious agenda. In this case, to rebrand Meghan, masked as being about the food, the guests, or whatever. Next, notice how important it is for Meghan to brand herself as a concerned parent, a direct response to her critics.
I think as a working mom, and again, these are 3 projects that we're all launching really at the same time. So the behind the scenes for the past year and a half have been incredibly busy and ambitious.
Behind the scenes,
but to see it all come
quietly.
to life and try to give yourself the space and the grace to make mistakes, to know that you're not going to get it right every day, and at the same time to prioritize what we're going to put out as our next tranche of SKUs, as equally important to me as Archie losing his first tooth this week, which is about to happen, and I just hope we're back home in time for it. That it all matters. And when you look at your life through that perspective, which frankly being a parent gives you the most illuminating perspective, because what is seemingly so big somehow becomes so microscopic in importance compared to what's happening with your children. That's certainly how I feel, that you just make time to do it all. And I think maybe that's what is hopeful. That's what feels like the dream.
Yes, I'm sure Jessica implied all of that when she mentioned hope, because she didn't know what else to say.
We kind of need hope. I like to say fun, but hope. And
the first thing to notice here is that Meghan assumes the role of an entrepreneur. She talks about launching 3 projects at the same time, as if the projects haven't been criticized, because that's what celebrity culture and media companies like Time are about, giving people a false impression of who they should admire and what they should spend their time on. That's how untalented celebrities end up stealing the limelight.
The past year and a half have been incredibly busy and ambitious.
Ambitious? Really?
We could do a little dollop of yogurt as our clouds. Flour sprinkles. What is the bravest thing you've ever said? Asked the boy. Help, said the horse.
And ambitious. And
she says it's ambitious, even though she just finished saying that she went for something that wasn't complicated. That makes total sense. But I guess that's because the word ambition is merely part of her script, part of her self-promotion.
How have we culturally allowed that to be the case? There's nothing wrong with talking about a woman's success or her ambition.
You used the word ambition just now.
Oh,
and
it's a trigger word.
What? No. What? No.
Why is it culturally we are equipping girls and women to think that if you are ambitious, there's something negative about that word?
This allows Meghan and like-minded people to say, they don't like me because I'm too ambitious for them, an excuse for not changing anything about themselves. And speaking of excuses,
and try to give yourself the space and the grace to make mistakes, to know that you're not going to get it right every day.
First of all, I'm totally convinced that people needed Meghan's cooking show and self-centered podcast to learn this, because it's not like we've heard this 100 times before. Secondly, what a great way to keep convincing yourself that the problem's never you. Just keep giving yourself space and grace.
Microscopic in importance compared to what's happening with your children. That's certainly how I feel.
It's almost as if Meghan expects applause. She certainly seems aware that this is the high point of her self-promotion, as emphasized by the unnecessary convincing linguistic elements.
That's certainly how I feel, that you just make time to do it all. And I think maybe that's what is hopeful. That's what feels like the dream.
Self-promotion is one thing, reality is another, and in reality, Meghan hasn't succeeded in doing it all, as she says, praising herself, as evidenced by the negative reviews and low ratings. If this is a dream, how does Meghan distinguish between a dream and a nightmare?
Well, you are a very high-profile person. You are under a lot of microscopes, scrutiny. Yeah. How do you just stay focused, minimize the noise, not get distracted? Yeah. Give us some tools, tactics. We all have that in our lives.
Jessica disingenuously makes it sound like the scrutiny is because of Meghan's high profile, when in reality, Meghan has made many damaging claims that one doesn't exactly need a microscope to see.
And also concerns and conversations about how dark his skin might be when he's born.
What?
There was no guidance as well, right?
Mm-hmm. Nobody prepares you.
But even down to the national anthem. No one thought to say, oh, you're American. You're not going to know that. That's me late at night Googling, what's the national, I've got to learn this. I don't want to embarrass them. I need to learn these 30 hymns for church. Driving up and you know how to curtsy, right? And I just thought it was a joke.
But how do you explain that to people? How do you explain that you bow to your grandmother? And that you will need to curtsy? That's weird.
I curtsied as though I was pleasure to meet you, Your Majesty. Was that okay?
Statements like these that are supposed to expose Prince Harry's family only end up exposing Meghan's sense of entitlement as she complains about insignificant things, and statements like these that are meant to portray royal rituals as outdated, something which Harry and Meghan have an interest in, only end up exposing Meghan's lack of self-awareness, because considering that Harry's father and brother won't speak to him, and that Harry's grandmother was most likely disappointed or angry with him at this point in time, this isn't fun, and Harry's facial expression says it all. With her word choice, Jessica does everything she can to minimize the problems Meghan's facing, because the reality is, this isn't scrutiny, it's backlash, and that's different. Instead, Jessica makes it sound like Meghan's one of us, completely ignoring what Meghan said and done.
So we all have that in our lives. Yeah. Give us some tools, tactics.
So she wants Meghan, one of the most disliked so-called celebrities currently, to give people tools and tactics to stay focused and minimize the noise. This is why Time is one of the greatest media companies in the world. Jessica speaks as if Meghan succeeded with staying focused, when first of all, the reviews and ratings reveal that Meghan hasn't managed to stay focused, and secondly, that the vast majority of what Meghan's done has been about damage control, the exact opposite of staying focused and minimizing noise. Meghan's projects are completely dependent on the noise, as Jessica says in a deliberately oversimplifying manner, reducing valid criticism to noise, the same way Meghan reduces it to hate, so they don't have to deal with it, and so that Meghan doesn't have to change anything about herself.
To really wrap your head around why people would be so hateful.
Jessica deceptively makes it look like Meghan isn't the one who's made noise. This is like asking the Kardashians how they feel about people who pry into their personal lives, knowing that they've done everything in their power to make their private lives public. Jessica sure doesn't think much of the critical thinking abilities of Time's audience, which says a lot about Time and its audience.
Well, when I was backstage listening to Ryan speak and he gave that quote, which you all would have heard, what did he say? Tina Fey said, if you're feeling good about yourself, you don't want to, what did he say verbatim? If you're feeling good about yourself, go online.
Right.
Yeah, just go online.
This is another disingenuous response, because no matter how hard Jessica and now Meghan try to make it sound like every high-profile person faces backlash, the truth is they don't, and they certainly don't face the kind of backlash Meghan's facing and will continue to face. But anything to not face reality, I guess. Next, it's time for real laughter, because this conversation's grounded in something that's real.
And to feel grounded in something that's real, so I don't do that. I've made a very, very conscious effort to create boundaries for myself and for my mental health, for my well-being, and certainly to role model that as well for my children. I'm conscious of not just raising a very strong and confident young woman, But also having a son, I think, it's just as paramount of importance for young men to be raised with a confidence and sense of self that is going to empower the women around them too. So I try to model that behavior, but again, like, it starts with whatever's going on internally. And when I am able to not even just tune out whatever that noise is, to really not give it any credence, that has become so much a part of my day-to-day life. And things will get brought to my attention on a need-to-know basis. Outside of that, I'm kind of late on the boat for a lot of things going on, and I'm okay with that. That's part of what I find to bring me peace. It also helps me have very, very strategic focus on the intention of the products, the creative or the producerial work that we're doing that I want to bring to the table.
Jessica's oversimplifying and disingenuous question allows Meghan to respond with equally oversimplifying and disingenuous self-promotion, using mental health, which has become quite the cliché in our zeitgeist, an excuse for almost anything, to come across as a role model for strength and confidence, to create boundaries, she claims. However, it sounds more like an excuse for not facing reality, acknowledging valid criticism, and holding herself accountable.
For young men to be raised with a confidence and sense of self that is going to empower the women around them too.
Empowerment's another platitude from her script.
When Dove reached out to me, it was so, as I was saying to you, it's just so easy for me to jump on board with this now, the conversation of feminism and women feeling empowered, but girls' empowerment.
Almost everything Meghan says is geared towards deceptive community building, making it seem she's a spokesperson for women. I'll get back to the part about deceptive community building.
I'm kind of late on the boat for a lot of things going on, and I'm okay with that. That's part of what I find to bring me peace, what I find.
Yes, I'm sure she's okay with that. This looks and sounds like a completely reliable answer. And Meghan's been peaceful right from the beginning.
A few days before the wedding, she was upset about something, and it made me cry. And it really hurt my feelings. And I thought, in the context of everything else that was going on in those days leading to the wedding, that it didn't make sense to not be just doing what everyone else was doing, which was trying to be supportive, knowing what was going on with my dad and whatnot.
I'm kind of late on the boat for a lot of things going on.
The hedge kind of, indicating uncertainty rather than certainty. And the restrictive words, a lot of, as opposed to all, makes sense, considering that Meghan's made millions of dollars off of complaining about the press, off of never being late on the boat.
You would just see it play out. Like a story about someone in the family would pop up for a minute, and they go, we gotta make that go away. But there's real estate. On a website homepage, there is real estate there.
After an event where every single member of the family, senior members of the family had been, including the Queen, and on the front page of the Telegraph, Meghan.
I went, oh my God.
She was like, but it's not my fault. And I said, I know. And my mum felt the same way.
Meghan always seems to know exactly what's been said about her.
So, and on this show, it's a crew of 80 people, which also, when people said, why didn't you do it in your house? It's like, well, my kids are coming home for their nap, and 80 people in the kitchen isn't really the childhood memory I would love for them to have.
That's also why it's obviously sensitive to her to highlight her parenting skills, because she knows that some people have questioned them. Thus, there's a lot that suggests that Meghan's not late on the boat with anything, no matter how sincere she deliberately tries to make the claim sound.
Very, 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 very...
If I just close my eyes hard enough, people will think I'm being sincere. Also, it's not true that she doesn't give the scrutiny credence. It's not true that her alleged boundaries have given her peace. It's not true, which is why she says it. In fact, the scrutiny clearly bothers her, and rather than holding herself accountable for anything, she advocates for limited freedom of expression, censorship. Let's watch a few examples of this from one of the most brilliant panel discussions I've ever heard.
So much brilliance on this panel, and to really wrap your head around why people would be so hateful. It's not catty, it's cruel.
Notably, Meghan doesn't make distinctions. Conveniently, she generalizes any and all criticism as cruel and hateful.
You know, I think as we look at what's happening in social media, that what I find the most disturbing, frankly, especially as a supporter of women, is how much of the hate is women completely spewing that to other women. And I cannot make sense of that.
The reason why she acts as if she can make sense of that is because she wants women to think about themselves as group members, not as individuals, so that they don't criticize her. The idea that you shouldn't criticize someone who shares your innate characteristics is obviously absurd.
There are a lot of women that are at the highest level, executive level, who are great champions of women, who are great philanthropists, and they are working in these spaces, and yet they're allowing this kind of behavior to run rampant. And at a certain point, they have got to put the do's behind the says and really make some changes on a systemic level.
In other words, content Meghan approves of is good. Content she doesn't approve of is bad. How inclusive and real.
Grounded in something that's real.
The systemic change has to happen at the same time as the cultural change is happening. Because if you're reading something terrible about a woman, why are you sharing it with your friends?
Maybe because it's true. Because everything isn't simply hate. Maybe because you should be allowed to criticize someone on the basis of what they've said and done, and not their gender. Maybe because people have ears and know manipulation when they hear it. Excerpts like these expose the self-serving motives behind pretend community building. What Meghan really wants is for people to stop criticizing her, but she can't say that, so she disguises that wish as fighting for the common good. Be aware of deceptive community building in interviews with and speeches by politicians and so-called celebrities. Like the video and subscribe for more. See you next time.
Flower sprinkles.
Oh my gosh.
Talk about flower sprinkles.
You would think it's like a little fairy if I could just be tossing them around all the time.
You've brought this life to the world in such a beautiful way.
You do make life really beautiful. Like